Hi friends, welcome back. So I want to give you an update on what's going on in the stock market. Also too, some interesting news coming from Apple, Intel, and a bit of corruption also going on around the world. I want to cover all these things. And let's just jump right in. So first headline here, Apple plans to overhaul entire Mac line with AI-focused M4 chips. This is actually really interesting because essentially Apple and other companies, which we'll get into, are really targeting Nvidia's piece of the pie in terms of money in chips and AI stuff. And I can just tell you guys, I've mentioned several times on this channel, we have the new Apple computers in this household. And I can just tell you the new M chips are really, really good. Will the M4 chips also be great? Well, we'll see. I think Apple's going to be talking about that in June. So we'll keep talking about this stuff, but I want to go over a couple more things. There's a lot of money in these things. So Nvidia, they announced, I think it was the H100 graphics or whatever, and these kind of chips, they can sell from anywhere from like 10 grand up to like 60 grand. You know, maybe the average is 40 on eBay. These kind of things, they're in hot demand because you can use it for multiple applications. Obviously crypto mining, which we talked about quite a bit. This was all the rage for Nvidia, and now with sort of the push for AI. A lot of companies do need these things, but what's going on is companies are like, I don't necessarily want to give Nvidia all that money. I want to, build it myself. What's interesting today, and we'll get into more of the stuff, but what's interesting today, talking about the markets here, there was a big tech rebound. Nvidia actually, even though we talked about yesterday, was up yesterday, even though everything else was down, and it was up again today, 4%, which is quite a lot. Apple also up 4%. So it was interesting on this news that Apple's going to, compete with Nvidia, and Nvidia still goes up. I thought that was pretty interesting. A lot of other stocks went down in terms of non-tech. So then, tech-wise, your Amazons were up, Meta's, Microsoft, etc. Tesla was also up today. Technology was the big winner, and you can see here financial services was a loser. There's a bit of corruption story, which we'll go over in a bit regarding finances, pretty interesting. And also, too, growth and momentum were the winners today, and then value and low volatility were the losers. I laugh because it feels like it's seesawing every day on switching back and forth on who's winning and who's losing. The treasuries, which we also want to check out as well. The 2-year 4.97, the 10-year 4.6%. Remember, 5% is the magic number. Keep an eye on that stuff. Wholesale prices, as the PPI came out today, was a bit lower than what was expected. However, it's still at a 6-month high. Now, going back to the Apple, and I just want to give you guys an overview of the markets, but going back to Apple regarding the M4 chip thing, I was reading through this stuff, and sort of the key driver here is they're like, hey, you got to buy our chips because they're going to be AI ready. And I think one of the things that I always consider with this kind of stuff is how can a company like Apple convince you to spend more money on them? And that's something I always mention to you guys is a big problem for Apple. Say like and this is just the reality, most of their sales come from iPhones, so they generally don't talk about their computers quite as much as I would like them to. And I get it, most of their money comes from their phone sales, but can they convince you to buy a phone every year? Can they convince you to buy a computer every year? So for me, like we have Mac computers. The new M chips are really, really good. And essentially, the thing that I wanted was, can you run 4K really well? And they do. The M chips are quiet, they're cold, and they cold meaning they keep cool, and they run 4K video really well. Now, if indeed, and I think this is probably what's going to be happening going forward, this is sort of my prediction. Apple will start to integrate, I guess this AI software stuff in your, operating system, both in your computer and your phone, and then they'll say, hey, you have to have the chip to run the new operating system, and when you upgrade your operating system, and if you don't have the new chips, your system will slow down, bog down, and they'll like force you to buy a new one. You're like, okay, fine, take my money, that kind of stuff. So, do I need this new M4 chip right now? Probably not. But if they do change their software, then yes, probably we all need it, whatever. So that'll be interesting, like how different, how different that will be able to write the coding to sort of force you into spending more money with them. But to be fair to Apple, though, I do like faster chips, right? When in doubt, if you can make something for me that's faster. But again, I said, my concern is like your 4K rendering, processing, that kind of stuff. If you force us all to do AI and something if you figure out ways to make that faster, I guess we're all buying it. So Apple's making their own chips to compete with Nvidia. So is Meta. Same story, guys. If Meta's like, hey, you know what? I'm sick and tired of giving Nvidia a bunch of money, and we're talking about a lot of money here, guys. So this is like Zuckerberg. He was saying before, was this 350,000 H100 chips from Nvidia, and then I guess they also threw out a number of 600,000 chips. So it's a lot of money, right? And again, that's why I showed you the prices before. 30,000, 40,000 a pop. This starts to add up into real money. And then Nvidia's like, and Meta's like, you know what, I'm going to just make our own chip. So that's sort of what the news was, but here today, right? Meta debuts new generation of AI chip. Also, too, right? If other companies see that Nvidia's just rolling in the cash, my understanding is they have like 80% market share. That's Nvidia. Are they going to 100% market share? Probably not, because other companies, start to like figure out, okay, how can we catch up? What can we do? So then Intel, and this is all this the last couple of days, like all the companies are trying to just jump on board, both hardware and software, to say beat ChatGPT and also beat Nvidia. Here you can see here Intel unveils latest AI chip as Nvidia competition heats up. Now, there's something I want to mention with this, it doesn't really reach American news. It just doesn't. But I'm telling you, it's big news here in Korea. Intel is teaming up with Naver. And again, if you don't know what Naver is, it doesn't mean anything to you. That's why they don't run the story. But it is a big deal. Naver is basically like Google here in Korea. Naver's really good. That's the best way to say it. If you want to talk about like other big companies like this, it'd be like a Baidu or maybe a ByteDance in China, right? These are major tech companies. But I can just tell you, Naver has really good tech, and so Intel doing a partnership with Naver, I think is pretty big news actually. This is kind of what Naver looks like. It's a search engine, but it's more than that. It's got all kinds of stuff. I can't go through all it's basically like Google, like all kinds of stuff. So here in Korea too, everyone uses Naver email. I know around the world, or I'll say USA people use Gmail. It depends which country you're in. I think in the Middle East they use other things, and then it's not Naver, but the other big company here is Kakao. That's a big messaging app. So people don't really use WhatsApp here. They use Kakao and Naver, the two big ones. Moreover, what are they going to end up putting out? Who knows? But they're signing contracts and doing partnerships. And I want to mention too is also interesting with Intel. Was mentioned in the article the company Bosch. That's a German one, and then also to IBM. So again, those alliances are forming to sort of go against Nvidia. And regarding the Bosch one, I believe this is a German company. So if there's any Germans watching, I'd like to hear your thoughts on that. Like, what do local Germans think about Bosch? I was looking at this too, like just talking about, because when you make content on YouTube, this is sort of what the average kid wants. They just want to hear that their Tesla and Nvidia stock is going to go up, and then that know other companies exist. But other companies do exist, guys. For example, Mercedes-Benz and Bosch, they're working on their own driverless thing. Challenge the Tesla with the robotaxi stuff, right? So you can see here. Evidently too, there's a lot of money and stuff, and it's hard to manufacture and expensive. So this was a headline I saw here. It says Bosch innovative mild hybrid system for Mercedes proved costly for a supplier. So they're working on it. They'll figure it out, I'm sure, or something. But moreover, with these sort of partnerships, this is sort of why I want you guys to thinking about when one company starts making a whole bunch of money, like say Nvidia, other companies do form competition, right? And partnerships. So this was an interesting story as well. This came out. This was on March 26th, so a couple weeks ago. But I guess Google, Intel, ARM. Now, my understanding of this is they were saying here that the way Nvidia works is they have like some sort of proprietary software thing or architecture, whatever you want to call it. And again, chip people will be able to comment on this way more. But I guess this group here, they're calling it, was it Intel, Google, ARM, and Qualcomm, and Samsung. So there's a lot of companies involved. They want to do this thing called the Unified Acceleration Foundation, so I guess UXL, and make it more open source. So meaning that open up for more companies to jump into this thing. So I don't expect Nvidia to have a monopoly and I don't, you guys know this. And the reason why I mention this stuff is because again, the YouTube, algorithm, or the YouTube pumpers, or however you want to call these kind of people, they always make it sound like Nvidia is the only company, and same with Tesla, and they all have the best engineers, and all these people, Intel, Google, ARM, Qualcomm, and Samsung are all dumb. I disagree. There's a lot of other companies out in the world, and a lot of smart people. That's why I'm showing you guys this kind of stuff. Other news that we get here in Korea, again, will be different than your news. Renault, and I'm here in Busan, that's why it was big news here. They're spending a whole bunch of money. Was it 523 million to start developing hybrid vehicles? Hyundai is building buses in Japan, electric ones. And again, I want you guys to just sort of expand your mind into thinking about other things that how can I say, other than the stuff that's dominated U.S. headlines in terms of, like I said, in the U.S. news, you'll hear about Intel doing the stuff, but you won't hear about Intel's partnership with Naver or something like that. What was in the news though, the USA Today was I saw in the U.S. news was the Prime Minister from Japan, Kishida, was speaking before Congress. That was pretty cool if you guys saw that. And something too I've said several times on the channel, my opinion is that the U.S. should form as strong a partnership you can with both Japan and Korea, and also Vietnam, actually, which we'll get into. there was a bit of corruption with Vietnam, and this is sort of one of the things that always holds back countries from, developing the partnership with, say, like in Southeast Asia or Africa as well. It's just corruption is a massive problem. So I'll give you an example in Saigon, because we used to live there. The Japanese actually invested a whole bunch of money into building like a new monorail system, right? And the thing never got built. I might be finished now. I'm not there now, so I don't know. But and they never got built, and money would just like disappear. So this was like a regular occurrence. I worked in the film industry when I was in Vietnam, and I can tell you, it is wildly corrupt in all number of ways. Government hands are kind of on everything, and they always want a piece of the pie. And this particular headline was a really big one, actually. It says, Vietnam tycoon Lan sentenced to death over 12 billion fraud. So it's basically embezzling money. There were a bunch of people involved with this, and this is unusual to where, a financial crime will yield a death sentence. Now, whether or not she, does get that, who knows? She has like 2 weeks to appeal, I believe. But there are a bunch of people involved. So it was saying here, 86 defendants. Again, this is in Vietnam. And crazy stuff. Her husband got 9 years in prison, and then her niece got 17 years in prison. A lot of times this stuff is like whole family-related activities, but it's not unusual, right? It happens everywhere around the world. And I'll give you a simple example. Elon Musk has his brother on the board of his own company, Tesla. So don't think it's, oh yes, it's only the Vietnamese have family involved with this kind of stuff. But I people may ask me my particular opinions. I'll just say there's corruption everywhere, and the big difference between countries is how strong are your laws and how strong is your essentially media, and to allow whistleblowers to come out and say, hey, my boss is doing a bunch of corrupt stuff. What ends up happening, though, is that if your boss is doing corrupt stuff, they kind of implicate you, and moreover, you get rich off of it as well. And you get the whole point of this stuff is like people get greedy. So I'm not shocked by any of these kind of things. I've seen this stuff before, and generally speaking, this is sort of why I wasn't excited about working on Wall Street or going into certain business ventures. There's just too much. How can I say? Too many greedy people you have to deal with. I'll just put it that way, and too much corruption. So I can't tell you, if this person gets death sentence or not. I don't know. But I wanted to mention, though, is that there's a similar story also in the USA. No death sentences, but I guess the SEC and then the OCC, they're investigating. This is like the financial crime arm of the SEC. They're investigating Morgan Stanley, and they're saying like, yo, why were you letting people who were banned from E-Trade continue to trade? And there's like money laundering claims here. I mentioned this as well is because, this is something that I think is important to understand. So in the USA, I could steal a candy bar, for example, from 7-Eleven. And if I look a certain way, let's be pretty blunt, let's say I'm black, police may show up, I stole a candy bar, and they may shoot you over these kind of things if you don't comply. And guys, I get it. That's a whole other ball of wax. But I don't want to get in that kind of conversation, but I'll just say, think about this, just a candy bar, right? I steal a candy bar, or maybe I steal a comic book or whatever, and you could get a death sentence on the spot. Whereas like, in this situation, I'm just talking about a financial crime, like to understand and think about the difference between, a small petty crime like that compared to like a 12 billion fraud kind of thing. I mean, it's a massive difference. And how do we punish and think about this kind of stuff? And people say, well, there's a difference between, stealing candy bars and you maybe punching someone, you can hurt someone. I'm just saying, for example, whereas, you're not hurting anyone when you steal $12 billion. And, money crime and financial crime. And we talk about this kind of stuff, a lot of fraud on YouTube. It does hurt people. If you take someone's life savings, they don't have any food. You take someone's life savings, they can't pay for medical expenses, etc. It does affect people's lives. So, I don't want to get an argument over, what I think about the death sentence. That's a whole other conversation. Same way with the, whether or not you should get shot over stealing a candy bar, that kind of stuff. But I'll just say I tend to be more on the stricter side of enforcing crime. You probably understand my point of view on that kind of thing, and if you know my channel, you know my feelings on that stuff as well. I don't tolerate this kind of stuff, and so yes, this stuff is rampant, and I don't like to deal with these kind of people myself. So I'm happy for 10 years being a professor and trying my best to teach people ethics. Moreover, I'm happy hanging out with you on YouTube doing the same thing. And this is the reality, though. If you have ethics and morals, sometimes you're not quite as wealthy as the billionaires like this, but ultimately, at the end, you're playing with fire with this kind of stuff. So just don't get involved. with the wrong people is all I have to say about that. So anyway, do appreciate your time, everyone, and I'll catch you next video.